I'll take some pictures. And then
now I'm worried.
I haven't edited it before. I've had a couple that are like, I really shouldn't have shared that. And I'm like, it's fine, it's longer, but it should be able to. You're just kind of putting it under, or you can put it in. Yeah, I'll put it on right So we have a wide variety of speakers. Last month we did a whole it's very good time for us. UK talks
Testing one. Testing. This one's not working.
And we're passing this one. Oh, yeah.
Testing.
Oh,
Testing.
it works. Hello, hello.
All right, we'll just let you hold them for right now, and they are live, so keep that in mind.
Testing.
There you go.
Actually, I'll give this one to Lisa, and then once Carla introduces you, she'll pass her mic to you. Okay.
So I
Y'all are
started
good?
me apparel.
Okay.
Company you'll hear all about it, but there's 4 of us, and as part of our company retreat.
We'll get started.
So I'm planning something. Pues mira que me have a coffee. Y me preguntan. Así no sé si les gusta empezar a conversar.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Ya para empezar a Oh, great. Yeah, so start using them. So I work on this and then, of course, I couldn't teach it all enough before I actually did something. So talk about it. Yeah. I don't want to be a leader, so now I can That was really cool of you guys to
We're going to start in 2 minutes. Well, good evening, and welcome to our November 1st Wednesday speaker series. I'm Dr. Jeff Hornsby. I have the pleasure of serving as the director of the Rainier Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation and the chair of the Entrepreneurship and Management Department here in the Bloch School of Management at UMKC. We love these events. It's a good way to kick off the month. It's also 75 degrees outside in November, and we'll take that any day. This is a continuing series. We will have our first Wednesdays in December and then picking back up again in February as the spring semester starts. So just mark that on your calendar, first Wednesdays, on the first Wednesday of every month during the school year. We at the Rainier Institute have many activities, but this is one of the primary things we do, and we're proud this time to partner with some other organizations. We have the UMKC Financial Wellness Center. We have the UMKC Multicultural Student Affairs. And then we have the Avanzando Latino Mentoring Program as co-partners in what we're doing tonight in our entrepreneurship panel. So I hope you give them your full attention. And before we start with our panel, I'd like to invite Alex Matlack up to talk a little bit about the Side Hustle Challenge.
Okay, thank you. All right, guys. Well, we concluded accepting applications for our Side Hustle Challenge. You've probably heard us talk about over the last couple months. We've narrowed it down to our top applicants, and what'll happen next, and I'm going to read who they are in a second, is you guys will all vote for your first, second, and third choice for the Side Hustle Challenge. And so you'll watch usually like a 60-second social media video about what the side hustle is, and then rank who are your top three. So if you're in my classes, you can get extra credit for filling those out. I'm sure that's true for many of the entrepreneurship classes as well. And if you are one of the applicants who's moving on, then it's a good opportunity to share this with other UMKC students, to have them vote as well. And voting is only available for UMKC students. And we're open to voting until November 18th. And then what'll happen at next month's next month's first Wednesday is we will announce the three winners. They'll win prizes of $500, $750, $1,000, and acceptance into the eScholars program. So we were overwhelmed with how awesome the applications were. So good job to everybody who applied, and thanks for participating. Okay, so here are the applicants who are moving on to the next round. Olivia Gray with the real estate company, Amy Taushanzi with Iranos, Rinkesh Gagada with Pin Aroma, Ellie Doman with Studio L Space, Morgan Phelps with Phelps Furniture, Spencer Claiborne, KC Clean, Tate Berry with Musician Value Elevation, Noelia Olivares, Moriscos, Mr. Chulichi. I'm sorry, what did I get that right? Okay, thank you. Congrats. Azizi Aslanova, Affinity Silk, Yari Gray, Yari Fashion Company, Joe Beaver, Rolling Magic Detailing, Luke Facinelli, Fascinated Photography, Thomas Retsky, Stride Comics, and finally Nick Younger with Scenic Media. So those are our next rounds. We'll give a round of applause to those who are moving on. And thanks for your help in voting. And then, next slide. So also, while I'm here, I run the eScholars program here, Entrepreneurship Scholars. You've heard it every month here, but if you are interested in starting a business over the course of a semester, go ahead and apply. I'd love to talk to you about your business. We've got next month's first Wednesday is going to be a demo day presentation of 10 of the businesses that went through it this semester. So you'll get to see your peers and what they built and what they're working on. So we'll see you for that next month. And hopefully I see some of you applying for that program soon. So thank you. Who do I turn it over to?
Hello, I'm Philip Goncher. As well as my teaching responsibilities, I manage the UMKC Rainier Mentor Program. And we have an opportunity for all of you to get some mentoring. I'm sure all of our panel members would tell you the road to success isn't only based on hard work, passion, and accomplishing something, but it's networking, it's talking to people that have been there before you. So Monday through Thursday, we have an actual physical mentor on premise in room 317 from about 9 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon. You can walk in, you can set up an appointment. All of their profiles are on the window in the room, and you can set up time to go talk to them. I know in my classes, I'm offering extra credit and opportunity to go talk to them. But if you have questions on anything about entrepreneurship, there's quite a brain trust of people that have been there before you have. I'll be in the back of the room. If anybody wants a business card, we could get connected, and I'll tell you more details on how to go about doing that. So are you next? So I'm passing it on.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Carla Marquina. I'm the coordinator for Multicultural Student Affairs, and I lead the Avanzando Latino Mentoring Program. We have an upcoming program in partnership with the Financial Wellness Center, led by Anna Zimmerman over here. Our next event is also going to be a discussion about starting your own business. Many of our scholars have been discussing that either they already have a business or they're wanting to start one. So this is going to be kind of like a working lunch for us to discuss different ideas and get everything started. Next slide, please. And also, we would like to highlight many different student businesses. So if you are a student entrepreneur and you would like for us to highlight your business, we'd love to do that. So if you could please scan that QR code, answer a few questions. Again, we'd love to highlight your business and highlight you. So now we're going to get started with our panel. So I would like to introduce our moderator. His name is Armando de la Torre. He's a sophomore majoring in business administration, and he is also an Avanzando scholar.
Hello, everyone. Like they said, my name is Armando de la Torre. I have very much respect for anybody who's pursuing entrepreneur, just because it's lots of hard work, lots of dedication. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. It's not easy. It's time consuming, and it takes lots of effort, but I won't get much into that. Today, we have a great group of panelists today, and I would like them to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Veronica Alvidres. I am a full-time educator. I teach entrepreneurship to young people, high schoolers. I see some previous students of mine in the group. Hello. And I also started my own company about 2 years ago, Para Mi Apparel and Home Goods, targeted for Latinas. And so that's me. Thanks for having me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Pena, and I have a business called Urban Hikes Kansas City. So kind of like you're hiking in the mountains, except we're actually downtown in Kansas City, Missouri, hiking through alleyways, going up hills, walking over bridges, or in KCK doing the same thing. So I really highlight hidden gems and things that we don't really see as Kansas Cityans. And people come on my hikes and they're like, wow, I didn't know that this existed. I started 3 years ago.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Perez Andujar. My business is Index Lingua. What I do is I provide telephonic interpretation in over 300, 200, 300 languages. I don't even know anymore. My background is actually fine arts, and I actually graduated from UNKC in the master's program of theater, scenic design. And I also manage a bed and breakfast in Spain, which is a challenge. So I'm kind of like all over the place, and just wanted to share a little bit of that, and I hope everyone have a good time. Thank you for having me.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Munoz, and I started and founded an organization called the Toolbox Small Business Resource Center. And so we are a one-stop shop for anybody who is an aspiring entrepreneur or has a current business and is looking for help navigating all the permits and licenses and legalities, but as well as creating your business plan, marketing, getting connected for different certifications and their contract opportunities, and just a little bit of everything. So I've been working with entrepreneurs for over the last 16 years now. So over that time, helped over 1,000 small businesses get started from scratch. And some of them are now up in the hundreds of millions to even one that's in the billions. So yeah, it's a lot of opportunities out there. So.
Thank you. And with that being said, I'll start off with the first question, which is what inspired or motivated you to create your own business?
Okay, I can start. I think for me, it really started a long time ago. When I was when I was 10 years old, went to Mexico. First time I had ever gone to Mexico. And I saw a gentleman that came we were visiting some relatives, and gentlemen came into the house to come and visit, and they were wearing suits. And it's the first time I ever saw a Hispanic person who wore a suit. And I was so impressed. And so I asked my mom, well, who's this person? Who are they? What do they do? And it ended up being, she's like, oh, well, that's a businessman. They wear a business suit and they do important stuff. And I was just like, oh, wow. I want to do that when I get big, not knowing what it really was. And so that year, when I came back to school, we had a candy bar sale, selling the world's famous, world's best chocolate. And so I felt like, wow, this is my opportunity to see if I can be a businessman. And so I organized my brothers and I got my mom to take us to downtown. I lived in Topeka. And so we went to downtown, and I stood outside of a couple office buildings as people were getting off of work, and I was going up to them, asking them if they would buy candy. And so, I'd go and I'd start and I'd ask them, hey, would you like to buy candy? And they'd say no, right off the bat, and would just kind of blow me off. And I was kind of getting a little sad. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to be good at this. So then I figured out that, wow, if I change the way I approach, and I started off going my approach with, hi, can you help me? And then folks would stop and say, well, yeah, how can I help you? And then I'd say, by buying this piece of candy. And so I figured out just how to change my narrative at that age. And so so that was third grade. I ended up getting setting the record for selling the world's most chocolate throughout. And so they did a whole ceremony and assembly. And from there, I just fell in love with the idea of business and entrepreneurship, and ended up, I was 12 when I started my first lawn care business. I had 20 clients that I had at that time, and they're just kind of gone from there. So.
Yeah, I'll go next. Similar to Gabriel's story, I, as a kid, very entrepreneurial just by nature. I grew up in Mexico, and my parents, grandparents all owned businesses, small businesses, mom and pop shops. But that's where I started getting my customer service skills at 7, like giving out change and changing the stock in the store or whatever. And so, yeah, same as you, just kind of explored that throughout my life. And then what really made me I knew I wanted to own a business. I actually graduated from UMKC. I see some of my instructors here as well. And I knew I wanted to start a business. I did not anticipate, I honestly thought I'd do it after I retire and like later in life. And then of course the pandemic happened, and it sped forward the need to start a business. It was really, para mí, was created out of frustration. A lot of Latinas are still expected to be the primary home caregivers at home, taking care of mom, taking care of dad, taking care of the kids. all the house chores, and on top of that, having to then economically provide for your families. And so after the pandemic, all of my friends and myself as a mom, we found ourselves with just overwhelmed with so much responsibility, right? Suddenly the pandemic made us teachers and made us nurses and just like we had no time to ourselves. And so para mí came out of my own frustration of feeling like I was losing who Veronica was without the hats I wear for everybody else. And so when I talked to my girlfriends, I realized they were going through the same thing. And it made me wonder if Latinas were feeling this way overall. And so what we did is we launched a social media account for about 9 months just to test our topic of discussion to see if Latinas would, and women in general, would gravitate to this discussion of, hey, let's be something beyond what we are for everybody else. Let's just be ourselves and chase the dreams and things we want. And so it took off. We got organic followers, and that's what made us realize we wanted it to be a business. Then we had to decide, what kind of business it was going to be. So it went from there. But yeah, established out of sheer frustration.
For me, I started my first business when I was living in the Dominican Republic. My husband and I were working in the workforce, had professional jobs, but it was really hard to make ends meet. So I realized that here in the US, we make banana bread all the time. Everyone knows how to make banana bread, but in the Dominican Republic, a lot of no one knew how to make banana bread, and there's bananas everywhere. So we started a banana bread business, and it was called Mireya's Loved Baked Eats, and Mireya is my middle name. So that was our first business, and it actually helped us to just make ends meet. So we had a little bit of spending money to buy the things that we wanted to buy when we were living in the Dominican Republic. Later, after I was in the professional world for a while working at nonprofits, I was listening to a side hustle podcast. So all of you out there that are working on side hustles, it's worth it. Think about those side hustles. And this podcast is called Side Hustle Nation. And I heard someone that was highlighted on the podcast who has a urban hiking business in California. And she talked about it. It's called Urban Hiker San Francisco. And when I heard her story, the idea resonated with me so much. And I was like, I need to do this here in Kansas City. And about a year later, I actually had my first paid hikes.
I am originally from Spain, and I really never thought of doing any business or anything. I was actually quite disoriented. I'm a late bloomer. So I was holding different jobs and things like that. Well, it's a long story. I ended up, like I said, studying art. And when I finished the program here at UNKC, I started my theater company. But it was all my money, which was very little. And I was so unaware of the world of business. I didn't even realize that I really could not do all by myself. So anyway, I started doing work as an interpreter for AT&T over the phone, which is what I now, the business that I do. And actually, it just was not a good thing. Working for somebody else started to get to my nerves, to be honest. And also I was interpreting around Kansas City, and I apparently did pretty good job to the point that many judges were saying, you should start your business, So I bought eventually I dropped the phone. It was driving me crazy. And so I bought a computer and a printer, and I took them home, and I just found out how to start a business, and I started doing translations over there from my house. And from there, it just, I don't know how this happened, but it started to evolve and more to the point where it is today. But I think my art background, which is why I come back to, was very helpful. And also it came to a point where I came to here to UMKC, and I graduated from the e-Scholars program, really useful, a wonderful program, by the way, because I always have different projects and things in my head, and eventually something's going to happen. I know that. So that's why I just, from like I said, I mean, I never thought I would end up doing business. My dad was a mechanical engineer, and he always worked for somebody. But my grandfather was a very good business person, and my husband always says, the business jumped a generation and it came to you. So I'm having a good time.
Thank you. And I found it very inspiring what you said, Veronica, about Latinas and them having to, how you said, that most Latinos are seen taking care of their families, taking care of their parents, and all that. And I'm with you on that. The following question would be: how could you tell us about a time you made a mistake in entrepreneurs, and how did you recognize and move past it?
Oh, man.
I just said about the theater.
Yeah. I've got,
When you don't have any money and it doesn't work, at least this is my case.
I mean, entrepreneurship is full of mistakes. That's how you learn. I've learned to just choose to fail forward when I'm scared of something. I'm like, I'm just going to fail forward and I'll be better than where I'm at right now. And so one fail forward we had early on our business is we sent a newsletter out, and we were really excited about a newsletter, and we realized we didn't like hyperlink it back to our website or like create a conduit for an actual sale. And so we were like, we're not getting any sales on the website from our newsletter. Why is that? And so it wasn't until later I was like, because we didn't finish that circle of communication with our customer. So that was one that, it felt like hours were wasted. And then we only had 3 free newsletters to send from our Squarespace account before we had to buy the thing. And so it was like one wasted attempt, but at the same time, we learned in that process. So entrepreneurship is filled of those moments where you are just going to make a mistake, because if you're creating a business that doesn't exist, or at least in your niche market, right? Like you're building your business here in Kansas City. When you're doing something new like that, you don't have a roadmap necessarily. And so you are going to make quite a bit of mistakes. So having comfort with making mistakes and taking risks is part of the gig.
So I would say there's accidental mistakes and there's mistakes that can be avoided. And unfortunately for my family and ours, so my dad started a business when I was 12 years old. He started off by we were going to Austin, Texas, because my grandparents had moved down there. And so we stopped at a flea market one day, first time going down there, and we saw, they're selling t-shirts, 5 t-shirts for $10. And my dad's like, well, that's a really good deal. These are nice t-shirts that people like back home. So he spent $200, bought as many shirts as he could, and we went back home, and my dad ended up selling those shirts right in that first weekend. And so he decided to go back, bring more, invest all the money, and kept doing that throughout the entire summer, and ended up having to decide once it got cold what he wanted to do. And so he ended up running a little store in the business, and got that up and going. And people started coming to him for different products and services, especially within the Spanish speaking community. And so my dad figured out a way, this is back in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s. My dad figured out how to find calling cards, CDs, DVD, or back then, not CDs yet, there was cassette tapes. We were selling Spanish cassette tapes. We were selling just different products you couldn't find. Because back then, if you went to like a Walmart or grocery store, there was no Hispanic aisle. There was no place to find these type of products. And so community. So my dad ended up starting the business though. And so I think the biggest mistake my dad did was try to do everything himself, not ask for help. And so what ended up happening was my dad ended up trying to do all the taxes and paperwork every year himself, and ended up falling behind, and ended up having to work out a deal with the IRS, and had to end up closing his business though. And so that's a mistake that was very avoidable. But if he knew where to go, where to ask for help. And that's kind of actually what led me to open up I went to work for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce right after I graduated high school, because that was about the same time my dad had all that happen. And so I wanted to help other people avoid those kind of mistakes though, and take those. So.
I would say, as Gabe talked about, there are mistakes that are avoidable. And I would say one mistake that I made was one time I was on an urban hike that was a sunset hike. And I had a really active group that was moving at a fast pace. But sunset was pretty early that night because it was getting cooler. And we had only gone about 2 hours, and normally our hikes last 3 hours. And we saw the sunset, and the hike was going to be done in 20 minutes. And I thought, wow, we still have time. And I asked the group if they wanted to take a different route than what we normally take. And they were into it. And as I said, it was a very active group, walking fast. And then it got dark, very dark, when we were on our way back. And I took a different route than what I was used to and what I knew. And there was an area that had a sidewalk that had the light was burnt out. And somebody actually tripped and fell on that hike. And it was pretty bad. I mean, it was a bad fall. And it was like, wow, if I would have just taken the route that I'm used to taking, then that might not have happened. And I had actually noticed that there was something, it was just the sidewalk was raised, which is everywhere in Kansas City. The sidewalks are raised, but if it's so dark, that was why she didn't see it. And I pointed it out. I was like, watch your step. But she was so close that she didn't realize there wasn't time to actually think about it. So afterwards, I got flashlights if we are out in the dark for everybody so that they can look if they need to. And I'm just more aware and to think about to not experiment with a group if I want to experiment, do it on my own. So it was a really good lesson for me. And I did a lot of follow up with her and just made sure that, I could do whatever I needed to do in that situation.
Back to what Gabe was saying, I feel like lots of entrepreneurs, they try to do lots by themselves. It's not just a few people here and there. It's lots of people. I've done lots of stuff by myself and I've regretted it at the outcome. But there's other stuff that I've also done by myself and lots of things, and it's come to accomplish, and some of them have not. So I could very much relate to what you said and everything. So the next question is, how has your definition of success changed since you first started your entrepreneurship journey?
I think the definition of success is really something personal, at least for me. Although there are a lot of general, the general idea is you start a business and it grows and it grows and it grows. I personally don't, that's not the what I pursue in my business. I have grown it to a point where it is what I need at this moment. And I keep looking for opportunities, but I don't necessarily believe that in my particular case, I needed to be more big than it is because I have other interests. So at least in my personal opinion is that it's personal. It's whatever you envision and what it is that you want for your business. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with that. So, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs because we're in KZK, which has an extremely high poverty rate. And so a lot of folks that I'm working with are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of them usually are getting paid the minimum wage. And so they're struggling. And so for some of these entrepreneurs, I've had a conversation with somebody and they're like, we're driving down a neighborhood in KZK, and I was talking to a banker, and he's like, "Oh, that business is struggling. That business is this," and just because he's using his own metric as to what he considers success. And for me, I was just like, "Well, hold on. This individual was making $20,000 a year previously. They needed assistance. They weren't able to what do you call it? Keep up for their family and whatnot. And so, but now they've changed their life around. They're doing $80,000 a year, but they have more work-life balance. They're their own boss, and they've moved themselves out of poverty, though. And so for me, it's always, I like to look at the distance traveled. Where did you start at, and where are you at? Because we're all starting out at different places. We have different networks, different resources. And so I think that's how I look at success. It's just that distance traveled.
I think for me, success it's definitely progress for me. When I see progress, when I look back at the years that I started, since I started 3 years ago, and I saw how much I made that first year, which was actually pretty much nothing compared to the cost, my insurance and different things that I had to pay for. And then the second year to see that grow, and the third year, that's what I have really seen as success. But something that I didn't think about from the beginning was how people find meaning in my business. So I have 5 different guides that I work with, and that's something that they all love to do. So for me, it feels very like success if I can help others have meaning in their life in different ways and see them do something that they're passionate about. And that's something at the beginning when I was starting my business that I had never considered, but it to me, it feels like success and it brings me a lot of joy.
I think for us at Para Mi with, creating apparel and home goods products, and an office line, for us, success is that our customers return, that we are building relationships, that we are not that they don't just shop our site once and never come back. To us, success is that we develop a relationship with them, that they're excited about the new products, that we're actually having a conversation with them. So even though, your profits, obviously that matters and it indicates success, for us, when we're looking at our social media account, we're saying, let's not get to 5,000 followers. Let's make sure the 1,200 followers we have now are actually 1,200 customers. How do we do that, right? And so your metrics of success really have to do with, again, like Maria said, I think personal, but also depending on what you're doing with your business and how you're trying to impact those that you're trying to serve.
I would have to agree with all of you. Definition of success and entrepreneur is just more of a personal thing. It's not. There's no real definition to it. It's mainly what the person itself sees it. It could be any type of definition. What advice would you give any inspiring entrepreneur?
I would say if you're an inspiring entrepreneur and you have an idea buzzing around in your head, get it on paper. You may not look at it again, but you never know, right? Like ideas, I always worried about being just an idea person. I didn't want to be known as an idea person, someone who just pops ideas up and doesn't actually follow through on any of them. So one of the things that I try to do is when I have ideas, I jot them down, because what I found is that many times that idea is not really for me. It's to share to a contact or a connection, another mentor, an entrepreneur that I know. And so I guess my advice would be start writing those down, even if it feels silly, because sometimes the inception of one idea then becomes it metamorphosizes into something else later. So you definitely want to capture that.
I would say take action, and it goes along with get those ideas on paper and then take action. It's okay if you fail. And that's the thing that so often we're afraid of failure, and then it'll stop us so that we don't even start our idea. If you have an idea and have time to take action or make time to take action on it, be okay with failing and pivoting if you need to, but just go forward. Because if you're sitting and not doing anything, then nothing happens. But if you're actually going forward, things start to happen.
Well, to me, I think that when I feel a passion for something, I think that's what moves me, and what I think is what makes everything happen. But when I feel this passion, and I just follow it and don't give up, and especially don't start double guessing and thinking of the difficulties or anything like that. If the passion is strong enough, it will get you to wherever it is, because doors start to open. You're going to meet whomever, you're going to find the right program, wherever this and that, if the passion is there. But like in the times that I have, just going back to now, I remember the mistakes. If I have made a mistake that was based on greed, for example, instead of helping or instead of a passionate or something like that, I paid for that. I don't know if it is the case of everybody, but I certainly did. So to me, it's happened like that. I have something in my head that I want to help people. I want to do this. I want to do that. And doors open, which is why I keep my business at a certain size, so I can volunteer, so I can do other things that I have in my heart, that I have this passion, and indeed the doors keep opening.
You guys took all my answers. No, it's I think they're all right. The other thing I would say is don't be scared to ask for help. There's so many people out there that want to help, that want to see people be successful. And so, in fact, just earlier today, I was talking to somebody, and they said they wanted to get into sports marketing and whatnot, and so they were looking for interns. So by asking her, I'll be able to now connect her to somebody that I know that works in sports marketing and everything. And so it's that fast and that easy, and it can work that quickly. But you got to be willing to open yourself and make yourself vulnerable. It's okay to admit that you don't know something. So sometimes people don't want to ask for help because they don't want to admit that they don't know something. Nobody's going to know everything ever, and your business project or plan is never going to be perfect. It never should be perfect because you should always be changing and evolving and adapting to the climate. So that would kind of be my tips.
That was lots of great advice I had seen that are very useful. What you said, Lisa, lots of people are afraid to a failure. Me personally, I definitely am afraid of failure. And what Gabe said, lots of people are afraid of asking for help. Again, I'm also one of those people that are afraid to ask for help when time is needed. So I feel like lots of entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs should take that advice and actually use it. What are misconceptions that people have about becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I think one misconception could be that you might make a lot of money at the very beginning. There probably are some entrepreneurs who do, but I know I'm not one of them. So that could be a misconception. It just is so much slower than you might think. At least for me, it was so much slower than I thought, because I had to go from nobody knowing about Urban Hikes Kansas City to actually existing, and it took a while.
I think a misconception is that as an entrepreneur, people are your competitor. Like, it's not necessarily a misconception, but it's a misplaced conclusion. I think what I found in business is that yes, you have competitors, but more likely you have collaborators and mission aligned partners and supporters and people that you can leverage their business off your business. And so don't let this kind of competitive mindset keep you from sharing your idea. That's another one that I noticed is entrepreneurs, we tend to have idea fear, that we fear if someone's going to steal our idea and run with it. But honestly, the likelihood that they're even going to get it started, like starting a business is hard work. If you don't work it, it doesn't work, right? You have to work your business. So when it comes to sharing your idea, the likelihood someone else is going to pick it up and run with it, not likely, right? Because it's hard work. I mean, if you haven't started it, it's probably for a reason. And so I think those are the two that we enter with competitive mindset. But if you open up to collaborations and seeing thought like, just build the space for networking and collaborations, you'll get your business a lot farther than if you start with competitive mindset and kind of just hold yourself to just your crowd.
Let's see. I'm trying to think something. You took the one I was going to say. Well, let me think here. What's another one? I just had one I can't remember now. My mind went blank. Go ahead. Yes.
I think one of the misconceptions, I think, is that to think that or something is too difficult, or the idea is already out there, or all these negative things. In addition to what you said, that all this is part of whatever stops you from starting something. Whatever the idea is, obviously it happens for a reason. I think it's also a matter of starting to trust that, okay, I have this idea and I don't want to go back to the passion because I already said that. So that's my take on this.
I'd say I guess what I was going to say earlier was just that entrepreneurship is a lot like, what do you call it? Trying to learn how to drive a car by just reading a book. Just because you read the book and you know the rules and laws of changing lanes or how to drive and use the car doesn't mean that you're going to be a great entrepreneur. Once so I would say that you just need to get a business started and you kind of learn that way. And so you got to get out there and practice and learn. And if you don't succeed, you take those lessons and keep pushing forward and lean forward on that. So.
I could definitely agree with business don't blow up or like skyrocket after the first year. The family business that I help my family run, we started off in an old like one of those Pizza Hut buffets. We started off in one of those with foldable chairs, foldable tables, and paper plates. And then it wasn't until 2010 where we started to get noticed by other people after we received our first award, which was Mexican Restaurant of the Year. And then ever since then, I mean, it's just been growing and growing and growing.
What's the name of that restaurant?
Mi Ranchito.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah.
And then the next question would be, how have your priorities changed since you first started your business?
Oh, man. So for me, I think when I first started my business, I started it as a side hustle and I was working full time and it didn't grow very much because I wasn't giving very much time to my business. So then after having my business for a year and working full time, I stopped my full-time job and focused full-time on my business. But what I found is I almost focus more than full-time on my business because of the hours that I spend. And there's just so much to do with my business. So I would say that now that I've given it more time, it takes up more time. It's grown, but my time priorities have completely changed because I don't do anything else besides to earn money besides my business right now.
My priorities at the beginning was to make anything, make any money, sell something, because I didn't know, I just started very with basically not much knowledge. So I just wanted to sell however it is that I could and make some money. And then as the business has grown, I don't have to focus so much on that. And so now my priority is to maintain what I have, grow it at just at the pace that it's still comfortable for me. But what it has changed, because I've been in business since 2004, is that with my time, I want to help others. I volunteer, for instance, at the detention center with the juveniles, teaching them all kinds of different arts and business and stuff like that. And I have other projects that I want to give back. I think that is the word. I think my priorities is now to start giving back.
I think my priorities, I still hold my 9 to 5. I'm a single parent. Like I have all these other things, right, that are still priorities. But as far as my business, we're almost 2 years in. Actually, just our anniversary just passed. But looking at the time that I spend on my business on a twofold strategy. So the internal processes and internal things my business needs, but then also external connections and contacts my business needs. So looking at your business from the two lanes, right? Internally continuing to improve, whether that's, organizing your pricing sheet or revising the website, updating the website or anything like that. But then also on the external side, finding a new vendor, finding a potential new partner, finding a potential new vendor or a mentor, or getting more word of mouth, doing things like this because it puts my brand out there. So when I look at the priorities for my business, I look at both lanes because you want to simultaneously do both. What I've noticed is some entrepreneurs will develop the whole thing flush out, spend 3 years making it perfect, but then they don't have any connections and they don't have anybody to talk to because they've stayed in kind of their cave building this thing out, right? So it's about simultaneously being able to do both. And it can be tiring because you're using kind of both sides of the brain here, right? Strategy and then socialization and all of that. And so learning how you operate and being self-aware of what works for you is key in making this feel quote unquote balanced versus trying to tackle everything on the same day, because there's no way you can do that you can ask your body, your brain to do kind of 2 or 3 different strategies a day. It's too much.
Yeah, I think the priority I would say is very similar to what you both have said, because being an entrepreneur can be very lonely, especially if you don't have family or friends that have ever started their own business and they don't understand sometimes everything that's going through your mind. You can't go to sleep because you keep thinking of different ideas or you didn't get this done. And so that becomes very, very difficult for people and stuff. And so a good priority, I think that I always encourage folks is to get to meet other people who are in the same industry or others who just have that entrepreneurial spirit, because you want to be around positive people. You have to be around positive people, especially when things aren't going well, because there'll be days that are terrible, and there's other days when everything's going really great. But when you surround yourself with other positive people and you see them achieving success, you see that it's possible, and you start to change your mindset and you keep going, and you know not to give up, that there's light on the other side. And so getting out, connecting with people, I think is really important.
You know, last month I was here last month competing for the Alchemy Sandbox 5 grand competition, and I failed forward. I ran out of time. I just felt terrible. My stomach was in a knot on the way here. My stomach was in a knot while I presented. My stomach was in a knot when I left. I was just sick to my stomach till the next day. But one of the things that happened is that I wasn't able to practice my pitch with my coach, with my mentor. I have a couple different mentors, and they were on vacation. Like the timing just didn't work, and so I didn't have anybody to practice with. And I didn't practice as much as I should have, and that's why I failed. And so for me now, we're coming back this month in a couple weeks here. Hopefully the story is different, but part of the priority that I had to build in is I have to make sure I have plenty of practice, and I have to make sure I have plenty of practice with numerous of my mentors, because they all have such insightful feedback based on their own experience.
I just want to say thank you to the panelists for coming out today. I want to say thank you to sponsors and thank you for everybody who came out. At this time, oh yeah, do you guys have any questions? I completely forgot about that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So our team is 4 women. None of us are contractually hired by Para Mí yet, and we're still all kind of run 9 to 5 independent jobs, but there's 4 of us. In our first year, what we focused is in building the lanes and roles for each one of us. And so there's 4 women at Para Mí.
For Urban Hikes Kansas City, I have 5 guides. The first time that I got the first guide was about a year and a half into having my business. And then after that, just more people came up and found me and said that they wanted to be guides. So those are mainly the guides that I have, but a year and a half after I started my business.
I am full-time myself. I have an assistant, and then everybody else that works for my company is subcontract. The legal team is subcontract, the CPA, the interpreters, everything else is subcontracted.
And we're a nonprofit, but we still have to run and operate just like a business. So we have to bring in money and we got to cover all our expenses. So, but we just brought on our first full-time staff member. So now, so very excited about that. We have 2 other individuals that we contract out to facilitate some training. And then we have a 9 board of directors that also help and volunteer a lot, as well as some other community partners that we work with. And that's what really a lot of the ability for us to be able to move forward and do a lot works working with all the different organizations to support each other.
Right now, we pay our models with a sweet apparel discount and a coffee. I don't know if that counts, but I mean, you do what you can, right? And so that's where Para Mí is at. No one's fully employed yet.
And I don't have actual employees. They're all contractors as well, because they work probably 7 hours, 10 to 10 hours a month.
Great question.
Another question.
My question was if you had a problem with consistency at all with your business, and maybe like within yourself, like trying to commit to it things like that.
Yeah, I don't know for anyone else or particularly for the women in here on the panel, but like I struggled being consistent at working my business at when we first got started because I went through major imposter syndrome, really bad. Like I wanted to quit. I wanted to like the team had luckily I have these three amazing women as part of co-founders because they had to talk me kind of off the ledge because I couldn't get consistent in working because I kept that negative talk was just like you know holding me back, and so it took a lot of mental coaching for me to get past that, and I'll still see it now and then, but part of that is just staying consistent as much as like working your business but also consistently like hyping yourself up to continue to do things because it's hard and you can get discouraged. What you don't want to do is lose momentum when you get discouraged because momentum is very difficult to build for a business.
That's a really good question about consistency. And I find that I have a hard time being consistent with the things that I don't like to do. So as an entrepreneur, I do so many things that I'm not really that good at. And I have a mentor, a SCORE mentor that's really helpful. And I'm part of an entrepreneurship class and I get help. But I would say that it's hard for me to be consistent with my accounting and doing the things that I need to do with that. Sometimes it's hard for me to be consistent with social media. Even though I'm fine with social media, it's just that constant posting all the time that's really important. And if I get busy and I go a couple days without it, then I lose that consistency. So really for me, the consistency is challenged when it's the things that I don't like to do.
I solve that by delegating. Like I said, I have a CPA that takes care of I do the minimum, but then everything else I give it to somebody else. But what helps me with what you're saying is I write what I have to do every day, and I stick to it like as much as possible. Like I have my calendar. Tomorrow is accounting, or tomorrow is this and that, or tomorrow is putting the Facebook stuff or whatever, and I stick to it, and I give myself one day at the absolute most to fool around, but then it gets done. I have to confess that I don't do it right away, but I do it. That's what I do. Helps.
Yeah, it's in regards to consistency. Yeah, I think what's helped a lot for at least like our organization is utilizing technology and really trying to build that infrastructure before we started taking in clients and started working with individuals and stuff. So in that way we could have those systems built to be able to handle the capacity that we have. But it took, having to learn about different programs and services that are out there, software and other platforms like that, to be able to utilize that to build some consistency. But then also going to different trade shows or workshops, talking to other organizations and seeing how are they doing it, what's working for them, what do they recommend, what have they learned. And so that's why I would say when you're an entrepreneur, it's really important to get out and meet other entrepreneurs and just learning best practices from them.
I think mentors can play a big role in consistency too, because when you have think about it, when you start a business, no one's holding you accountable. It's you versus you, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm a procrastinator. When I was sitting on your seats, like, I was writing that article tonight by midnight and to get it to Phil for his class the next day. So like I am a natural procrastinator. And so for me, mentors have been really a key to hold myself accountable. So now I have to be consistent because I'm being held accountable by the check-in I have with Gabe, right? And so that's how you can use relationships to hold yourself accountable too.
I agree with that too. My mentor has been really key in accountability for those things. Like I'll do all my accounting reports before I meet with her. And I mentioned SCORE mentors before, and I want to mention it again. SCORE mentors it's a national program, and it's I think you have to have an actual, you actually have to have your business started to do it. But finding a mentor is so helpful.
All right. I also have one more question. So you guys talked a lot about networking. What is, in your opinion, is a key to successful networking? And also, where do you find your mentors?
So the way I teach networking to young people is I like to say it's a full closed loop. It's a continuous loop. If you think networking is, I'm going to go to this event, shake some hands and collect some business cards, that is not networking. Networking is establishing a continuous loop of connection with that person, right? If you and I meet today and I get your card, that we met, but we're not necessarily networking. But if you and I have a coffee in a week, and then we say, hey, let's do this again in 3 months to just check in with each other. Now that is a continuous loop of networking. And what I found is that most people, we have a threshold of how long relationships last, right? You're going to get anywhere from 18 months to 3 years of a relationship before someone moves or they change jobs or they do something else. And so you have a timestamp on that networking connection that you made. So for me, when I teach this thing, I said, when you're networking, it's about that continuous loop. So when you collect that card, write the email, do it. Don't wait a week, write it that next day. And it doesn't have to be overtly thought. It could just be, hey, Carla, it was great meeting you at the first Wednesdays last night. Would you like to have coffee next week? Right? Like it can be quick, but it has to be continuous. You have to be intentional. It's not collecting business cards and letting them sit in your backpack. And I'm telling you from direct experience, because I thought that's what networking was. I'm like, how come I don't have any contacts? Well, because I don't work the relationships. You have to work them.
As far as the mentors, this is a good place to start. They are already saying there is a person that is mentoring. But to me, when I took the program here at UMKC, I had a mentor, and I still call him, even though he's not constant. I don't need constant assistance, but whenever I have some, especially something, a conflict between what's legal and what's moral, which is something happens, or a creative idea or something like that, I get in touch with him. And the other thing that helped me when I started my business is I joined the Chamber of Commerce, the KC Chamber of Commerce, and they had a program back then, and they usually have a lot of assistance in with chambers of commerce that are helpful in order to find mentors, even people that you may meet, and then, like you said, you develop a relations, and if they have a business that is something you admire, and you have a connection, then you can continue that. And if they agree, sometimes you don't even have to say that it's a mentor, but it is a mentor, a friend that is knowledgeable and a resource.
And one thing I would add is, the networking part is important. Sometimes it can be very scary and intimidating to go into a room full of strangers if you don't know anybody. And so one thing I recommend folks, sometimes you want to start off and ease off, is go and volunteer with the organization or the group that's putting on the networking events and whatnot. And that kind of gives you a row. It kind of helps you connect with the other people in different capacities and stuff, and kind of makes it a little bit easier at times.
I just want to throw in some of my favorite networking events are actually cleanup days, like litter cleanup, brush cleanup, because I find people that are down to earth, they like to work, and I've made some really good contacts that way.
All right, I think I have time for one more question. Anybody?
Veronica, you kind of mentioned imposter symptoms, and I just want to know, like, if you have any tips or advice for those starting out in entrepreneurship and how not to feel that way.
I'm still working on it. But for me, self-coaching has been a lot of that, and also connecting with other women who started their business. And so making sure I have women mentors who can kind of navigate or help me navigate new waters. But it's a learning process, and you have to have your support system, right? So you have your support system at home, or your support system within your co-founders or your other entrepreneurs in the area. But you definitely want someone that you can call and say, yo, I'm freaking out about this. I don't know if I can do this. And they're like, of course you can, right? So that, I will say, for Latinas, we're particularly going through a very interesting time in history, because right now, Latinas are twice as more than likely than any other demographic right now to spend money on her own education or to start a business. So what we're saying is we're seeing a cultural shift in the way Latinas see themselves. But that also means we're trailblazing. A lot of us are going to be trailblazers in our family or within our relative, social circle. That means that a lot of us are going to go through, imposter syndrome throughout this process. So part of it, I think, too, is just like having peers within the same demographic that you belong in, trying to do the same thing, so you can really have just a buddy to go through this new experience that you're doing.
How about you?
Sorry, I
go
was going
ahead,
to
go
throw.
ahead.
And I see Michael Corona back there. So if you're looking for networking events, I would recommend KC SourceLink to be able to find the most comprehensive list of entrepreneurial activity going on in Kansas City.
Good plug for our fellow UMKC entrepreneurship. How about you guys help me in thanking our panel? We truly appreciate you guys coming tonight. They're going to hang out for a little bit if you want to chat with them one-on-one. If next month, first Wednesday is December 7th. It's our eScholars Demo Day. Pizza's out this door, and thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, I think you good job moderating.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you my card. Yeah, I'll give you my card too.